The following review is intended for entertainment purposes and targeted for adult fans of the series.
Thank you, Hero, so much. Thank you, Hero, so much as always for watching. Not this video. Blah, 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 blah. Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to the very last Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills episode review, and it's going to be an interesting one. First of all, for anybody wondering why I'm back in glasses, Kaizoku and Chomsky are just doing some adjustments on the contact lenses. Nothing to worry about there. For anybody who doesn't remember or didn't see my last Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters episode review, or any of them to be honest, the last episode, episode 40, It's a Gorganis Life, did not provide a satisfying conclusion. The Sentinels defeat Emperor Gorganus in battle, but he is not destroyed. They pass some kind of annual evaluation by Nimbar, and that's just it. I was completely unsatisfied with that ending, and as a creative person, when you are unsatisfied with an ending, you tend to write your own. I decided that this Power Rangers off-season that I was going to write a completely original actual finale for the show by doing a review of that fictional episode. If you think about it, it kind of makes Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters ending the reverse of a Neo Saban season. We've had the Christmas special, now we're getting the story finale. A challenge that I face in doing this is to not get outside the creative constraints of the show. I know that this show was terribly written and often at best just serviceably acted. My goal is not to give the show a better finale than it had, just to provide some actual story resolution. The temptation is there, since despite everything I actually do still like the show, to write its finale a little more ideally. But I'm going to try not to do that, and that means actually focusing on including some of the show's more irritating components. Things like Gordon's selfishness, Drew's crankiness, Nimbar ignoring the Sentinels' concerns, etc., etc. I really want this to feel like an episode that could have legitimately been part of the show's run. Oh, and one final note, I obviously can't use screen caps from this episode because it kind of doesn't exist. But I mean, hey, that's going to make it feel more like one of my current Power Rangers reviews, right? With all of that being said, let's take a look at the 41st episode of Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills, the story finale, In the End. But in the end, it doesn't even matter. The episode begins on the planet Molecula.
What a bold defiance of established trends. Sarcastic applause.
Where we see the Sorcerer and Voldek tending to Emperor Gorganus, who's clearly still stinging from his defeat by Nitron. He whines that he's been trying for an entire Zoltrum to defeat these annoying teenage Sentinels. Lechner pipes in and says he's been studying human society via television, and it turns out that humans call a Zoltrum a year. Gorganus thanks him for that information by zapping at him, which he just barely ducks. Lechner retakes his perch and asks his divine malevolency which creature he's sending to attack the Sentinels today. Gorganus' response is chilling. All of them. Uh-oh, we're in trouble. The Sorcerer speaks, somewhat rare, but it kind of sounded like Lechner's voice, so anyway, saying that if he sends all of his creatures through the portal, it could destabilize them to the point of breaking. Gorganus is unconcerned, saying once he takes over the Earth, he can just send a signal for a ship to come and pick him up, returning him to his throne.
Okay, I guess that makes sense.
At the cafe, the Sentinels are setting up for a New Year's Eve party, Gordon whining that he has to do this, but reminded by Lori that the cost of her forgetting that he signed up for the prom committee, the episode switched, technically that was her in his body, but anyway, was a favor down the road. He says he really needs to work on a college application essay, and the Sentinels start discussing their futures. Drew is characteristically aloof, saying that she's just going to work at the cafe full-time and save up money for a year before attending a nearby art school. Swinton says that he's already been accepted to Princeton, where he's going to study computer science, with a minor in astronomy so he can keep an eye on things. Lori says that at a recent cheerleader competition, she was approached by a recruiter from the University of Florida, who encouraged her to apply to the school, saying she'd be a shoo-in for the dance squad if she's admitted. If not California, it's gotta be Florida, right? She says. She says that she hasn't heard back from the school yet, but it looks pretty good. So that leaves Gordon, Mr. Confident, Mr. Sure of where his life's going, that's actually the most unsure. He's applied to 2 or 3 Ivy League schools, but hasn't heard anything back. How could this happen to me? Swinton brings up the obvious concern. They all know that Emperor Gorganis hasn't gone anywhere, so as life is preparing to take them their separate ways, what about the Galactic Sentinels? Gordon says that Nimbar can just pick 4 new ones, but the others aren't so sure. Would Nimbar have time to find and train a brand new team?
Who knows? Not me. Who cares? Ditto mark.
Just as Drew starts to suggest that, like her, the others should maybe make plans to stay in Beverly Hills, their tattoos splash. The portal opens up in the back storage room, and funny enough, the cafe manager sees the light coming from there this time and asks Drew about it. She says, oh, one of the light bulbs back there must be on the fritz, and the others all volunteer to help her check it out. The Sentinels are whiny as ever as they get to the cave. We were setting up for a party. What is it this time? Before Nimbar shuts them up, saying this is very serious. Gordon asks what freak of nature is up to bat today, and Nimbar explains that it's all of them. Gorganis has opened 5 portals on Earth, which is apparently the maximum number that can be opened from a single location, and sent 2 monsters to each one. Swinton points out the obvious problem. There's 4 Sentinels and 5 portals. Nimbar explains that one of the portals is pretty far out in the desert, so it would take the monsters a good bit of time to get to a densely populated area. The Sentinels will need to hurry with their individual battles, so at least one of them can get free and intercept those other 2 monsters. Or you could just let me handle it, an echoing voice says. A portal opens and out steps Rick, aka Orion, the 5th silver-colored Sentinel from the Galactic Hitchhiker. He and Drew hug as he explains that he's been keeping tabs on the portal network, and seeing a sharp increase in activity near Molecula, he figured that something was probably going on Earth. Nimbar just makes a 5th transodisk appear next to the other 4. When Swinton asks if he was able to do that, why he didn't just recruit more Sentinels on Earth, Nimbar goes, "There's no time, get on the transodisks."
Shut up or f*** off, ideally both in either order.
Okay, excuse me if I peek over a little bit here to make sure I get all the details of this right. Scorpio arrives in the city, facing off with Neuragula, who's gotten the better of her a couple of times before, and Q Libra. Taurus arrives on the Mountains and Caves desert set, taking on the Sorcerer and Octodroid. Centaur is also in the city, but at night, so I guess a different city, taking on Voldek and Isolus. Apollo looks like he's on that alien planet set, taking on Slagar and Ninjabot, and Orion is in another daytime city, taking on Snake Trooper and Pretoraptor. As you can imagine, for a 24-minute episode, this all goes fairly quickly. The Sentinels are all getting pushed around at first, but manage to collect themselves. Apollo opens a portal somehow, remember it's giant size, so we can't even see it, and calls into it, somehow able to communicate with the other Sentinels this way. He tells them to put all of their weapons on the upper band frequency, because this will change the monster's molecular frequency.
Now, you do know what a bilateral kelelactral is.
Of course I do, human. I am not stupid.
Taurus, of course, has no idea what Apollo's talking about, but Scorpio, funny enough, pieces it all together. They can make it so the monsters won't be able to portal away. Nimbar agrees, they can't hear him of course, saying that the existing instability in the portal network should make that completely effective. We cut around to all 5 of them blasting the monsters, who actually seem to show a little bit of fear when they're not able to portal away, before, I wish I could say exploding, but really they just kind of collapse down to the ground and fade away. All except for Snake Trooper, that is. That one seems just as tough as it was before, blasting Orion around a bit more. Gorganis sees an opportunity and portals back to Earth with Snake Trooper, the portal on Molecula exploding once he's left. Lechner looks up and realizes Gorganus won't be able to make it back to Molecula for at least 27 Dwizziks, and declares he's free, flying out of the palace. The other Sentinels portal over to Orion as Gorganis arrives. Taurus says they're toast. They needed Nitron to defeat Gorganis. They needed Nitron to defeat Snake Trooper. Orion is there to help, but he can't handle either one of them single-handed. They form Nitron anyway, and Mega Caliber starts glowing, and Nimbar is able to speak through it somehow. Dark Caliber, Gorganis' sword, appears in Orion's hand, and Nimbar says if they unite the two swords, a miracle may just occur. They do, and as the smoke clears, the 5 of them have combined into Dark Nitron. This is really just Nitron with a purple and black color scheme, holding both swords. They have a pretty epic 3-way fight with the 2 bad guys, but while Dark Nitron has the upper hand, they just can't seem to finish the battle off. The sword glows again, and Nimbar tells them that they need to encase the 2 in an energy beam using their tattoo power, and then fling them into the portals. Apollo immediately realizes what this means. For one, using their tattoo power is something that can only be done once. The tattoos will be completely deactivated afterwards. As for the other, the portal network around Earth has been so destabilized by all the activity that throwing the monsters into the portals will completely destroy the portals. They'll never be able to see Nimbar again. Gorganis and Snake Trooper get a second wind and attack, forcing the Sentinels' hand. They call out the names of all of their Sentinels, forming a beam which binds the 2 together. Now that the tattoo power is used and they're not going to be Sentinels anymore, their hand is forced. Nimbar tells them that he's proud of them, and they are the strongest and most resolute team of Galactic Sentinels that he's ever led. Apollo promises to lead Earth back to the stars to find Nimbar and rejoin the greater fight one day. They fling the monsters into the portals, Gorganis screaming that this isn't the end, he'll be back, and it doesn't even matter if Earth is no longer the center of the portal network, he'll come back and destroy the planet just for fun, before fading into the portal, seeming to start to merge with Snake Trooper as he does, before the portal explodes. There's a flash, and the Sentinels arrive back at the cafe, de-transformed, fortunately finding a note from the cafe manager that she'd stepped out to get some party supplies. They realize that their time as superheroes has come to an end. We cut back to Nimbar's cave, where he quietly says goodbye to his human friends before beginning a new scan for Gorganis. Back at the cafe, the Sentinels count down to the new year before toasting with what is assuredly non-alcoholic cider. They congratulate Gordon on his acceptance to Harvard University, where he will of course study business. Lori also says that she has been accepted to the University of Florida, where she plans to study nursing. She wanted to find a way to keep giving back, to keep being a hero. And yes, Rick is still there. No more galactic hitchhiking for him. Earth doesn't have a portal network anymore. He's not too upset about it, saying that Earth seems like a pretty decent place to settle down. Drew says she'll be happy to help him settle in, and Swinton even says that he can help get some identity documents for Rick. Gordon also saying that he knows a guy who can help with that as well. The 5 of them confirm that they'll be friends throughout the school year, and then even after, when life takes them their separate ways.
I'm glad that adventure's over. I was a fool.
I think it would be a little arrogant of me to give pros and cons and a score for a story that I wrote myself, but I feel like that would be a satisfying conclusion. The team all has directions on what they're doing next. The battle with Gorganis has a satisfying conclusion, though I did leave it open-ended enough that Gorganis could come back, and you had the rest of that school year for a second season. Some things, like a new suit for a powered-up Nitron, a 5th Transo disc, those are probably wishful thinking. I did try to keep things like the set constraints in mind, you may have noticed. I hope that, like me, this brings a sense of satisfaction to anyone else who liked this show for what it was.
Well, that settles that.
And that concludes the Tattoo Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills videos. I was actually pleasantly surprised that the recap videos I posted recently did as well as they did, even though they went up so long after I finished reviewing the show, and I hope this just puts a nice little end cap on the show for everybody. I maintain that while this show had significant issues, it was an interesting and surprisingly deep riff on Power Rangers, and I think it deserves to be remembered in its own right to this day. Thank you, heroes, so much as always for watching not just this video, but all of the videos, indulging me on this weird little desire to go through this show to the point of creating a 41st episode for it. So I really appreciate your patience if you weren't into it, your enthusiasm if you were into it, leaving me those comments like that. I greatly appreciated it. Down in the comments below, it is your turn to review me. What did you think of my final episode of the show? Did you like the conclusion that I gave, or did you see things going a little bit differently? Feel free to tell me about that down in the comments below. While you're down there, make sure you mash that thumbs up button to let me know that you enjoyed this video. I would greatly appreciate it if you'd like the kind of content I put together, if you'd subscribe to my channel so you can see all of my videos. And if you'd like to lend any financial support to my channel, you can check me out on Patreon or Ko-fi at OrangeRangerVideos, or check out a t-shirt or a coffee mug or anything, a mask like that, over at my Teespring store. Until next time, heroes, and for the last time in this case, may the power portals protect you. And that means actually focusing on including some of the shows, and they all volunteer to help check her out. Just as Drew starts to suggest that maybe the four of them should... Just as Drew starts to suggest that the four... Not the four. I didn't write that. Where did that come from? Oh, Nimbar agreed. No, I need to include that. All except for Snake Trooper... The tattoos will be complete... There's a flash, and the Sentinels arrive back at the cafe, which is closed because it's nighttime. And yes, Rick is still there. No more